Hey guys, welcome to this week's Angler News KZN Fishing Report. I'm your host, Vinesh Sagreem. Guys, it is winter, which means there's westerly wind, which means there are edibles. So westerlies equals edibles, right? We know this. Now, the KZN has been on a purple patch of edibles, a purple patch of shad. Amongst that shad, there are garrick, there are keelback, there are brusher, there are kingfish, there's grunter, there's trout, there's bass. There is a lot going on in KZN, and it has been really fantastic. However, where are the sardines? Well, I've chatted with Jace the other day, and unfortunately, they are gone. They are gone for now. There will be a push later on in the season. There will be a late run, from what we hear, but that cold front came in a little too late. They kind of sent the sardines deep. So that is enough for the sardines. I have had no news to report throughout the week, and looks like that's where it's going to stop right now. However, KZN did produce a ton of fish on all facets throughout the entire coastline and inland as well. And we are going to get into all of it in this week's show, as we usually do in great detail. But before we do, special thanks to our sponsors, the Kingfisher and CMH, Nissan, Proton, and Mitsubishi. So guys, big up to them. Without them, none of this could be possible. So, support those that support you. And in this case, our sponsors. Now let's get into the show. Starting off down the south coast. Guys, I can tell you, it has been insane with the amount of shad that's been coming out. Like we said last week, throw anything at them. Go and stand on any rock. You will get a shad, no matter where you are. It has been ridiculous. And later on in the show, I'm going to touch on my thoughts about the shad fishing. So stay tuned for that. But apart from the shad fishing and all the issues that are going on with it right now, guys, the garrick are on the bite, and that's been coming out virtually on a daily basis. Now, Adam has been reporting to us with what's been going on down the lower south coast, and this is his report of the water conditions. So take a listen.
So, Vinesh, we're back down here at Lucien Point, Manaba Beach. You've got Margate Pier right down in the distance there. It's Wednesday today, guys, and things are looking a hell of a lot better than last week. You can see the sea has definitely settled down. We've got some nice white working water. The sea is looking a lot more flatter than what it was the last few days, particularly, last weekend. The water's really cleaned up nicely down in the frontier, so it's really looking good our side. We've had a bit of a cold snap recently, as you know, but things haven't been that bad. Fishing's still been fairly good down in the lower coast. So just moving our way slightly over here through to Manaba Tidal Pool and Lucien Point, it's looking really good. We've got Shad Bay in the far distance there. So yeah, definitely looking fishable down on the south coast for this coming weekend. The weather's looking really good at the moment. So as you can see, things are not looking too bad in terms of fishing, especially weather-wise.
Thank you, Adam. Guys, that was Adam's report in a nutshell. If you want that full report, make sure to check out our podcast, where this week we've got a pretty decent one. 40 minutes of incredible content from all our correspondents. Now, getting into Warner Beach, guys, there has been shad day and night. Now, mainly in the mornings and mainly when the sun goes down. As we know, that's when shad usually bites. But apart from the shad, there has been garrick coming out on a daily basis. So Warner Beach is producing the goods. If you are fishing at night at Warner Beach, obviously be careful, but there are stumpies on the bite. So yeah, Warner Beach looking really good. Now moving on into Durban, guys, the bream species has been crazy all week. The shad has been on the bite. That's from Addington all the way down to Blue Lagoon. And that has been a bamboo junction out there, but the guys are definitely getting the fish. Apart from that, there's also been a fair amount of garrick. If you are looking at the harbor fishing, guys, last week we saw the harbor produce grunter up to 7 kilos. We saw them produce cob up to 5 kilos. But this week, still a ridiculous amount of grunter, but a lot of smaller ones, and the biggest ones were averaging between 3 to 4 kgs. So no reports of kingfish or springer. That seems to have quietened down, but there are the grunter in the harbor. Now, your offshore fishing in Durban, guys, that has been fantastic. More so on the bottom side of the fishing, 75 to 77 fathoms. That's where you get in your keelback. But apart from that, those bottoms are really coming out. And there has been some dogger in between. Not too much news of the cruiser. 1 or 2 cruiser has been reported, However, the snook has slowed down quite significantly, and Brad has spoken about a ton of half carp. Look at all these rods bending off Durban. That's off the Linsky Charters boat. Guys, that was some fantastic fish, and that's been going on the entire week. And by the way, if you are thinking that there's no edibles in Durban, there has been the grey sharks reported around the Addington area. And how's this? My friend Grayson bringing in this beautiful butterfly ray on Wednesday evening that was off Sunkist in the beachfront. So there are some edibles around. Now let's get into the North Coast. Guys, it is fantastic. It has been a great report from Jesse. If you want the full version of this, I said it before, I'll say it again, the podcast, go and check it out. It's available on all podcast channels. Now, Boulders Bay and Christmas Bay were the highlights of last week. That's where the fish were being caught. But this week, they are much more widespread. Reports from Bolito all the way down to Salt Rock. Throughout all the major hotspots, there has been reports of shad and there's been reports of garrick. The guys are getting them in good numbers. There are still the bream species around. And if you are looking to go offshore in those areas, well, yellowtail, amberjack, and all the other bottom fish species has been on the bite. So Bolito is also another area looking really fantastic on the KZN coastline. Now heading up to Intanzini Banks, guys. Not too great reports. If you are going offshore in the area, you are going to go deep. On the rock and surf side, obviously shad. There has been some garrick reported, but that's on your south bank end. As for the river, bad news about the river. It seems to be drying up. It seems to be closed. So all the big fish are out of there, and that's off your surf end. Now let's round off the saltwater report with Richards Bay and St. Lucia. Look at these catches out of St. Lucia. Some fantastic cutter. A sailfish still coming out in the mix. And that's the same for Richards Bay. Richards Bay is fishing really well also on that bottom fish and harbor end. Now, the freshwater side. Guys, 7 weeks to the river season. Like Jan says, who's counting? I tell you what, a lot of guys are, because we are missing that river action. But that still water action is still producing the goods. And not just for the trout. Look at the scaly action that's been going on from the NFFC. Guys, a lot of fish coming out over there. And if you're looking for the bass on the freshwater side, looks like those anglers aren't holding their cards close to their chest anymore. Albert Falls is still producing the goods with some proper slabs. I've got reports of that from Jesse as well. That's where he is heading this weekend. And not too much news out of Midma, but there's definitely fish to be caught. If you are also searching for that bass on the closer to Durban, well, Hazelmere has produced the fish. Not too many fish that has come out, but the ones that did come out were quality fish. So the guys are still getting that. And we've got reports that they're getting that on the top water as well, which is very strange to hear about at this time of the year, especially after this cold front that's just happened. So guys, that is our saltwater report for this week. Now, there are two things to take note of, and one of those are the sardines. What's going to happen? We don't know. So make sure to click that subscribe and notification bell, and as soon as we know, you will know. Another thing worth mentioning is that our shows, guys, just to remind you, if you want the full report of this, you've got the podcast, right? That's about a 40-minute show that we go on in great detail from all our reporters. Our correspondents are throughout the entire coastline. Our guys from Kingfisher are doing a great job in getting us that content. So yeah, it's something you really want to listen to, because that's where you got a greater amount of tips and detailed information of where these fish are being caught. Then, of course, we've got this YouTube version where, we give you a rundown within about 10 to 12 minutes of what's been going on throughout the coastline, included with some visuals. And then, of course, we've got our TikTok channel. So if you haven't found us on TikTok, check it out, Angler News SA. That's where we've got the hyper-fast version of this exact same podcast. Obviously, no visuals. That's just me running through the entire set with it. Now, that's out the way. A major factor that's been of concern over this past week. Guys, another topic that we have to speak about is the shad action that's going on. Guys, we all enjoy what happens when the shad run is out there. We all enjoy catching a bunch of fish. We enjoy catching on spoons, plugs, baits, drift baits, light tackle, whatever it is. We are having fun. We are taking the kids out. They are having fun. We're taking our friends out who haven't caught a fish before, and they have a chance to catch a fish, which is fantastic. But What has to be noted are the bag and size limits. Guys, those regulations are in place for a reason. There were reports of anglers being arrested, and rightfully so. The guy had like over 50 shad in his possession, which is ridiculous in my opinion. Um, we need to fish for the future. We do not want to be sitting out 10 years from now and talking about how fishing used to be. We already do that enough when we talk about how fishing was in the harbor back in the day, and how much fish we used to catch, how big the fish were. So we want to avoid that. And one way to avoid that is to stick to our regulations. These regulations are in place for us to fish for the future, for our future generations to go and catch fish. So I'm not going to harp on it too much. I think I've done a little bit too much of that on my podcast earlier this morning. Guys, when we are out there are ethics as fishermen, and I have done a poll this past week where we are talking about the top 5 ethics when fishing for shad. We know it is a bamboo junction out there, and there's a lot going on. Guys, there are obviously a lot more than 5 reasons or 5 things that we should be doing when we're out there fishing. But these are your top 5 that has been voted, and obviously it has been of concern to many anglers out there. So make sure to check that show out as well. So, guys, that's our report for this week. I hope you have a fantastic one. The weather is looking awesome. KZN is fishing well. When you're out there, always remember, keep that fishing area tidy, respect your bag limits, especially now that it's shad season, and fish for the future.